Robert Mueller said earlier this week that indicting Donald Trump was never an option that they could consider in their investigation because of a longstanding Justice Department policy. But there's at least one candidate, Elizabeth Warren, who's looking to make a change in that area. She said this: Donald Trump believes that he could violate the law, and he believes that the role of the Department of Justice is to help him get away with it. That's not how our country is supposed to work. I pledge to nominate an Office of Legal Counsel head who will reverse the Watergate era rule that a president cannot be indicted for criminal behavior. And she gave a little bit more detail about what she would do were she to become president, saying, here's my plan. Number one, pass a law clarifying Congress's intent that the Department of Justice can indict the president of the United States. Number two, amend the obstruction of justice statutes to explicitly allow for indictment when the president abuses the powers of the office. And number three, we need an attorney general who does not believe the president is above the law. And if you watched William Barr's recent interview, it is pretty clear that he is the conductor on the MAGA Express at this point.
Yeah, so I want to explain why this is good policy and good politics. So in terms of policy, think about it for a second. We're gonna do this later in the program, but a quick preview of it is that Nancy Pelosi went on Jimmy Kimmel's show last night and said, unless the Republicans in the Senate are willing to go along with impeachment before we even start the hearings, so a preemptive agreement from the opposing party ahead of time, we will not pursue impeachment, and that it doesn't make sense to. Okay, now if that's the standard, then the president really could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue, and he doesn't even need all the Republicans, because you need 2/3 to convict, and that's a political conviction in the Senate if they pursue impeachment. So if just a small group of Republican senators say, yeah, no, that's okay, the president can murder someone, then right now, as things stand, because of the Office of Legal Counsel, you can't indict a sitting president. So there would be no legal consequence and there'd be no political consequence. And so he'd get away with it. And amazingly, somehow the Democratic Party will have proven Donald Trump right about the most outrageous example he gave about shooting someone on Fifth Avenue and getting away with it. That's where we are, that's where we are. So as a matter of policy, of course Warren is right. The president can't be above the law, and that's not what this country is about. And of course, if he commits these crimes, he can be held accountable and he should be indicted just like any other person. Now, in terms of politics, I don't like. This is not complicated, guys. You're in a Democratic primary. Of course, the Democrats want to impeach Donald Trump, and of course, they want to hold him accountable. Remember the whole thing about resistance, and now that Nancy Pelosi has turned into the assistants. So, but she's not running for president. It's so easy for someone running for president to go, yeah, we should hold Trump accountable. How is that controversial? How is that not a layup? So Elizabeth Warren's like, all right, if all you guys are sitting around doing nothing, I'll take the ball and run. It's not that complicated.
Yeah, we've been talking about impeachment and everything, and to a degree, I understand the reason why Democrats don't want the American people to be against what they're doing, because they'll get mischaracterized, as it always happens, and they always lose that argument. It's weird how that happens. But every time Republicans paint them a certain way, they get stuck with it because there's a certain way that they don't approach it. So fine, so since now, I think the label is sticking out with Elizabeth Warren that she's I have an idea for that. Here's my plan for that. I think it's the term that's going on. Here's my plan for that. So if you're gonna dispute everything that a Democrat proposes or says, they usually say it with this like dark, tone that like, oh man, they're trying to destroy the country. So now if you're gonna oppose everything Elizabeth Warren says, and she puts it in terms to let you know she's working for the American people, and then she goes, you know, I'd like for the president not be above the law, and then so the opposition to that would have to be, no, I would like for the president to be above the law.
Bingo.
So when someone says it, they go, you can ask from Fox News and Fox and Friends in the morning. So if someone steps on, if McCarthy steps on and says, yeah, you know what, I actually would like the president to be above the law. Then people stop and go, that's kind of crazy. Because he had to say he's against a policy that is very American.
Yeah. No, that's why when Pelosi is now going on a speaking tour, when they ask her, why won't you impeach? She winds up defending Donald Trump over and over and over again. She said today, oh, well, if the Senate doesn't convict him, then he would be exonerated. No, he wouldn't. No, he wouldn't. That's not what 2/3 of the Senate means. And that's not a criminal action, that's a political action. So that's terrible politics. So it's not like, so it's the Democratic Party. So you might look at us and go, you guys are talking about this too much. This is the most obvious thing in the world. most obvious thing in the world. Water is wet, the sky is blue. Of course, a Democrat running for president should be in favor of impeachment and holding him legally, any president legally accountable so they're not above the law. But you gotta remember, they're Democrats. It's not at all obvious to them. That's why Warren's keeps leading on these issues. She was the first to impeachment. She's the first to, we should hold the president criminally liable. And then others will look at the polling and, oh wow, yeah, that's 89%. Okay, yes, I'm in favor, I'm in favor. And it's not just Democrats, by the way. It's just to Jayar's point, anytime you say, should the president be above the law? I mean, not only is that obvious, you're hoping your opponents say yes.
Yeah. So it's a great move by her. I hope more, move in that direction. I think that for most people, it seems ridiculous that the president can largely do whatever he wants. There'll be no accountability. The only thing I sort of disagree on is I don't like the willingness of almost everyone in the country to just pretend that that Office of Legal Counsel regulation is constitutional. That has never been adjudicated. I mean, they ruled back during the 90s that civil lawsuits could target the president. The idea is that you could not have a criminal indictment of the president, but the Supreme Court has not weighed in on that. When Robert Mueller said that during his press conference, that was basically his opinion, man. And I understand why he's not going to go against it. He's an avatar of the Department of Justice and its history. But I don't like that we've simply surrendered on that. That regulation written literally decades ago could be so binding on us that we would not even be willing to allow the Supreme Court to consider it.
You said it so simply, but it flies over a lot of people's heads. What sticks with people is, are you willing to let a president be above the law? You have to put it in sometimes elementary terms because that's how direct and easy this is. Just put it in those direct terms. And if they say yeah, go, so do you think President Obama broke the law, which a lot of Republicans for some reason do, which he did in other ways, killing civilians. But anyway, but then they'll say, well, hell yeah, he did. Be like, would you like him to get away with it? Because they definitely didn't then.
Yep. I like the way Jayar put it.
The TYT Plus app is now available on iOS and Android. Download to get more TYT content at tyt.com/app.